All right. So the other thing too is Phillip Rivers. Um, it was upsetting, and actually they had a replay of it just now. I was watching that of that game, so I was watching the end of it, and I look. I took the Seahawks with the points because I'm like quarterback who hasn't played in 4 years. He's coming back in against a really good defense, and Sam Darnold's played well this year. I mean, I know it's a big number, but I don't know about that. I don't know if I could take it. Should have, but of course it's easier to say that now. Look, Rivers, for what it's worth, for a guy that hasn't played an NFL game in 4 years, he played fine. He did what he was supposed to do. Okay, a lot of it was handoffs. It was, some short passes, some wide receiver screens. I thought his best throw of the day was to Alec Pierce on the drive that led to the field goal that put them up 16-15. That was his best throw of the day. He did throw a touchdown pass to Josh Downs. Colts got down in the red zone there, but and the Colts defense played really well. Because this Seattle offense, I mean, we saw, we've seen it on Sunday night against the Commanders. The Commanders are not a good team, even though they beat the Giants. Darnold has had some really good games this year. Sunday was not his best game. He struggled against the Colts. And the Colts came very close to winning the game. And they're still alive. They still have a chance to make the playoffs. But it took another hit losing that game because they could have. But it's just it's hard to criticize Rivers and the situation because were you really expecting Rivers to go out there and throw for 330 and 3 touchdowns? No, that wasn't happening. It was not happening. The Colts had to be perfect in all three phases. Well, more so on defense because you give up touchdowns. I mean, and the Colts held the Seahawks to 6 field goals. They kept them out of the end zone. It's just, no, and they could have got the stop at the end, but they couldn't. And, you had Blake Grupe hitting a 60-yard field goal, and then Jason Myers, I believe, hit a 56-yard field goal, and he's had a great year for the Seahawks. It came down to the special teams and field position, and the Colts came up short. And I wanted to see Rivers go out there and win the game. And he was emotional after the game, and it's going to be interesting what happens these next 3 games. And I think, I mean, it doesn't get any easier. I mean, the competition he's going up against. You play Jacksonville again. The Colts do. They play San Francisco on Monday night. And then, you got the Texans the final week of the season in Houston. They still could lose out. There is a big part of me that wants to see the Colts make the playoffs with Rivers, and they could still do it. But it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. I mean, look, if the Colts defense can play like that, and maybe their offense can generate more than just field goals. Again, they did score a touchdown, maybe, but it's just they're limited with Rivers. They are. Now, that's not to say, I mean, he literally just got there. He had, not that many days to, I mean, he knows the playbook, but not many days to practice and whatnot. Now you got a full week. This 49ers defense, again, give him all the credit in the world, Robert Saleh, with all the injuries, but this is not the 49ers defense we're accustomed to seeing. You can move the ball against this defense. The Titans proved that this past Sunday. There's no reason why this offense can't, and they could lean on Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor, I think, could have a big game on Monday. So that'll definitely help Rivers out. And, if the Colts defense, again, this 49ers offense, yeah, Purdy's looked good since he's come back outside of that game that he threw 3 picks, which he didn't because I needed him to not do that for fantasy and my, being selfish here. But it's a winnable game on Monday. All right, and Rivers, look, he turned the ball over at the end of the game when you're trying to, throw up a prayer. Other than that, did what he was supposed to do. did show that he's, a guy that's been out of the league for 5 years. It was that point where he slipped and he got back up and, basically he still took the sack. But, I mean, for what he did, he was a game manager. And the Colts had an opportunity to win that game. And I think if you had Riley Leonard out there, it could have been another. And he did play okay against Jacksonville, but it could have been another Max Brosmer situation where you just had no chance. With Rivers, he's from an era where, and that's why there's a lot of people talking about this too. He's from an era where the quarterbacks know how to read defenses, and he knows the playbook. He wasn't going to put the ball in harm's way until the end of the game, where he had to. He had no choice. But now we're at a point in the NFL where there's a lot of people questioning the development of these young quarterbacks. And Tom Brady has brought it up. Tom Brady's brought it up. That these guys are not being taught how to read defenses. They just go in, you're talented, just use your talent, your ability to, just throw on the run and you'll be fine. No, you got to be able to read defenses. And that's why give me the 2010 quarterbacks. Give me that era over this current era. Seriously. Well, there's certain quarterbacks right now from this era that could have played in that era. But listen, I give Rivers all the credit in the world. I mean, he didn't embarrass himself other than that when he slipped. And we got 3 more games of it. So, I hope he goes out there and plays well, and I hope the Colts find the way to make the playoffs. Because it still is quite a story. It's just, it for me, I wanted to see him win. Because it would be incredible. And, I mean, the Seahawks would be embarrassed, like losing to a QB that, again, they're going up against, like, Seattle's offense is going up against the Colts defense. It's not like quarterbacks are going against each other, but, Seattle losing to Phillip Rivers after being out of the game for 5 years, I'd be embarrassed. But they didn't lose. They got the win. That was a big win for them, and that sets up a big Thursday night game between the Rams and the Seahawks. That's a great game. That likely decides the division right there. And it's similar to last year with the Lions and the Vikings, although that was played the final game of the regular season, where one team could be the number 1 seed and the other team could be a wild card team, the 5th seed. Could happen. So, and they played a close game the last time they met. So we'll see what happens on Thursday, but that's going to be a great game.